Welcome to the Jeremiah Show. I've got a very special guest today coming all the way from Spokane, Washington, my old stomping grounds in high school. Sandy Zimmerman. Let me tell you what we're talking about. She's an American Ninja Warrior. American Ninja Warrior that will not give up and won't quit. And what her latest efforts are pretty cool. They're going to be featured this coming Monday on the show. I want you to tune in. It's American Ninja Warrior, Mondays, 8-7 Central on NBC. You can go to NBC.com, American Ninja Warrior. I'm going to tell you about the show a little bit just in case you have not seen it. First of all, it's one of the most fun shows on television, in my opinion. You cannot help but get wrapped in and then tune in every week. So this is season 15. American Ninja Warrior returns with some of the most elite athletes in the country competing on the world's most difficult obstacle courses. Season 15 has new obstacles, a bigger mega wall, and challenges that I'm just not sure how anybody does it. I'm just happy I'm safe and dry on my couch every Monday. Stakes are pretty high, right, Sandy?
Oh, it is one of those things in life that the tiny little margin for error in this sport cannot be compared to anything else. I mean, you're talking a tenth of a second or a milliliter off, and you could end up in the water. And I will tell you, it is cold water. They don't do us any favors. It's filmed in the middle of the night. And if you fall into that water, it is so frigid cold. So we are trying our hardest to stay out of it.
Yeah, that's good to know. I was always wondering how that water felt. It felt like if they were nice to you, they'd warm it up like a jacuzzi, right? But then it would probably be steaming on film.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a crazy show. It's a great show. Each season, the obstacle courses continue to evolve and become even more challenging for the competitors of all ages. So now, a couple years back, they lowered the age for the competition to 15 years old. The sport itself simultaneously grows rapidly across the country. So many kids and adults embracing it. It's a phenomenon. There's a top prize of $1 million, and that will go to the winner who can conquer all 4 stages at the national finals in Las Vegas. But to get there, competitors will need to make it through the qualifying rounds and the semifinals. So the finals begin this Monday. We're there. It's exciting. August 21st, 8 p.m. on NBC. And Sandy again is on Monday, so check that out. American Ninja Warriors, Mondays, 8-7 Central. Though few have ever actually finished the course, the challengers like Sandy, they stop at nothing year after year for that prize. And the climb, what's it called? The Mount.
Yeah, Mount Doriyama.
Yes.
It is insane. If you get a chance, this is, I've been a part of growing up, individual sports, team sports, traditional sports, non-traditional. And American Ninja Warrior is like no other sport that I've ever seen. And what you see on TV is so genuine in that it's an individual sport. And we are fighting for spots, we're fighting to stay alive, we're fighting for the $1 million. Yet somehow it has encompassed this nothing I've ever seen before as far as camaraderie and teamwork.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we are sharing all our secrets. How can we beat the obstacles? It's an incredible thing. And, it's, I think, a reflection too of what is incredible in this sport, but also can be incredible in our own personal lives. Like, yes, we have big goals and we have big dreams, but if we get there and do it together, we're all going to come out better for it. So it's just, I don't know how they have captured this incredible spirit of this sport where it can be individual and team all at the same time. But we are in this together. It's like a fight against the obstacles. And then these course designers, they are, I mean, just geniuses creatively, to be honest with you.
Right.
And
Yeah.
every year they come up with some crazy new obstacle. And this is stuff like we've never touched. So they put it on a course, they do, there, and then here we are in the moment with the pressure, with the cameras and the audience. Hey, here you go. Here's this new obstacle. Now you go do it under these conditions. So they are creative geniuses, though. I mean, I am just always blown away every year at the new obstacles they're introducing and how we have to try to figure them out on the fly. But it's just such a unique sport. It's just so much fun. And the big thing for me has just been the growth. Anytime you do something challenging, you do something difficult, you're going to grow. And what's cool is it trickles over into every other aspect of your life. So here I spent 8 years. I am not the same person that started this journey 8 years ago. And that's really what I'm most proud of, is that all these things that I've gained through Ninja in courage and confidence and grit and resilience have trickled over into every other aspect of my life. And, it's fun watching Ninjas because not only do they grow in the sport, but they grow as human beings. And it's just such an incredible journey to be a part of.
Mm-hmm. Who were you 8 years ago when you started?
Well, 8 years ago, I would say this is probably going to be a little hard for people to believe, but I grew up, I was a really shy, quiet, timid little girl, very guarded, not very trusting, and I lived with a lot of walls. And as I studied American Ninja Warrior, I had no idea that this was going to come from this journey. I honestly, innocently thought, it looks fun. I've stayed in pretty good shape. I was a PE teacher at the time. I thought that could inspire my students. I thought, let's give it a shot. But what I didn't know was the growth that I would have. When you do something really difficult, here's the kicker. It's the great part and the challenging part is when you do something really hard, it puts a megaphone to every little doubting, fearful voice that's in your head. And what Ninja Warrior did for me is I'd hear those doubtful voices. No, you're not strong enough. You're not ready. You're too old. What are you thinking? You can't do this. And it put a megaphone to those. But what was incredible about it is that then I didn't realize they were there. Now I could challenge those. Is that really true? Is that a lie, or is that the truth that I'm too old to do this? Mm-hmm. And so in challenging those voices, I've had such growth, and it's just been amazing. So it's so fun to get to share, the little tools that I've gained along the way to help other people. Because what I discovered, I thought it was just me that had all these little voices in my head, saying that you're not good enough or you can't do that. And what I discovered in sharing my journey and being really open about it is that, boy, I am not the only one. We all have that kind of little doubting voice. And what Ninja Warrior has done is brought it to the forefront. All right, Sandy, here are these doubting voices of the fears and all of this. Now you get to rewrite that narrative. And that's what I've spent, the last 8 years since I started this journey doing, is taking all those things and rewriting it. Like, is it really true? Because I carried a lot of baggage and scars from my childhood that I wasn't even aware of. And I just, it's one of those funny things. I had no idea this was all going to come from doing some obstacles. Who would have thought? But man, I'm so glad that I said yes. I'm so glad that I took that first terrifying step to apply for the show. And I'm so grateful they picked me. And it's just been incredible since then.
Where do those little voices come from? Why do we all have those?
Oh,
and like you mentioned, a lot of times we don't know that others have them as well, that everybody's going through the same doubts and the fears. How did it actually, American Ninja Warrior, take each one, how did you knock those down? How did you face them? I mean, you're competing now, you're using your body, you're athletic, and a lot of that probably clears the mind and focuses. But how did you not, personally, knock each one of those fears down, or what was the largest fear you had doubting yourself?
One moment that really came to mind as you were asking that question was at one of my very first ninja competitions. I drive 7+ hours from Spokane to Boise, Idaho, because that was the closest ninja gym at the time when I first started this journey. And I sat in that parking lot in the car for over 5 minutes, having a little debate with myself. And it was like there was this little Sandy, that fearful, scared of what people would think, insecure voice. And then there was the other voice, which is the big, I call her Big Sandy, this courageous, confident woman that loves a challenge. And I sat in that car in that parking lot for over 5 minutes, and these two just battled it out. Little Sandy would say, "Oh, don't go in there. You don't know how this is going to turn out. You could go in there and fail in front of everybody. You could make a fool out of yourself." And it literally, that voice told me, stay in the car, turn around, and go back home. But then Big Sandy chimed in. I mean, whoa, wait a second.
Good thing Big Sandy gets the upper hand.
Oh, yes, she does. Not always, though, because that's the thing. When you have, I think, these battles, it's like a never-ending journey. You get better at quieting that doubting voice, that fearful voice. But for me, unless other people have figured this out better than I have, you never totally shut it out. It just likes to creep up, especially when you get in pressure situations, when the stakes are high. It just likes to kind of bubble up. And so I think what I've learned to do is just navigate it better.
Mm-hmm.
And I can recognize, wait a sec, is that the fearful Sandy that is afraid of mistakes, is afraid of what people are going to think, is afraid of making a fool out of herself? Because I don't want her driving the car. Who I want driving the car is that Big Sandy, the confident, courageous one that loves a challenge. So eventually I did get out of that car, and I mustered up enough courage to go into that competition. And that was really the first step in a series of lots of like little steps daily that led to those buzzers on American Ninja Warrior and some of the most incredible athletic moments in my life. But it was navigating those voices and then having the courage to take that first step and walk in that gym. And I'll be honest with you, Jeremiah, I did not crush it. I did not crush it that first competition. I didn't suck, but I didn't crush it. But I showed up.
Yes.
And I've been making progress ever since that day 8 years ago. And that's the part I think is really my superpower. Is I will be the first to tell you, and I know there's a lot of ninjas out there that won't argue with you, I may not be the strongest ninja. I am strong, though. I mean, can you see that bicep in that video?
Yeah, I'm looking at your
I'm
website.
strong, but
you're cut. You're like,
there are a lot of ninjas out there.
I'm not going to show you.
You're going to show me yours?
No. We'll just say Big Sandy gets the win.
Okay. I never pass up a chance to flex on camera, since you're going to video this. I had to get that in there somewhere.
Yes, I'm glad you did. Well, that brings us kind of, although I have so many questions, let me ask one before we move on to
Okay.
current day right now and your recent win there. So speaking of fear, like there must have been a fear. Where did you say, hey, I'm going to go try out, just to try out. I'm going to go try out. I'm going to get in the car. I'm going to drive 7 hours. And then you got there, then you're still battling yourself. You probably battled the whole 7 hours. It must have been a long drive. But what led up to that moment right before? Where did you decide and why? Why did you decide I'm going to do that? I can do this. What do you remember? Like what?
Yes. I mean, I can specifically remember, well, my oldest son just happened to see the show on TV. And he's like, Mom, what's that? And I look over, and it's American Ninja Warrior. And at that point, I had never seen the show. I knew nothing about the show. It was on season 7, and I didn't know anything about it. And I looked at it, and I was like, I just remember thinking, wow, like, first of all, that looks fun. And then I remember, like, what everyone else does is, I think I could do that.
Yeah. See, I've never said that. I've never.
You haven't?
No. I'll leave it to you. I like watching you do it. But go ahead.
So that happened, and then I just, that gut, that intuition, when you just feel something so deeply. Well, I had this feeling of like, Sandy, that's what you're supposed to do. And I kid you not, Jeremiah, I fought that voice for about 2 weeks.
Mm.
And I'm like trying to shake it off, trying to everything I could do to not hear that ever again, because that seemed crazy. I'm like, here, I think I was 38 at the time. And I thought, that is nuts. Why would I feel called to go do this crazy obstacle show, one of the most challenging in the entire world, on national TV at age 38? Like, it made no sense. So I fought it and I fought it and I fought it. And I would get this gut feeling like, Sandy, you're supposed to do that. And I'm like, no, 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 no. And I just kept shutting it down. And after about 2 weeks, I thought, gosh, I can't shake this gut feeling that I am supposed to do this. And it made no sense at all, but it was just something I couldn't shake. So I thought, okay, I'll look into the application process. I'll see what it takes. You know, you have to do a 2 to 3 minute video, and it's pretty extensive questions. So I called up one of my friends. I said, Teresa, I'm thinking about doing this crazy thing. It's called American Ninja Warrior Obstacles. And she just said, let's do it. And I thought, oh, I was hoping she'd try to talk me out of it, but she didn't. And then that was the last nudge that I just needed of like, okay, fine, I guess I'm going to do this. So reluctantly, I did the video, I turned in the application, and I'd heard that over 70,000 people apply. So I really thought, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm going to get the call. And I got the call that very first season. So that's when I think the reality of it hit, that I could not believe that I was actually going to do this. And in a panic, I went to all the nearby parks because we had no ninja gym. I started using all the equipment, how it's not supposed to be used. I'm telling kids, don't touch this. Don't get on this like I'm doing it. It's not safe. I'm just don't copy me. But I just started training, and I naively, honestly, going into that first season, I thought, I'm going to crush this. I'm going to get the buzzer on my first season. Well, I didn't. And I spent 5 years, like my first 2 seasons, I actually went out on the second obstacle. And I won't lie, I was devastated. I was embarrassed. I just couldn't believe it. And then I had some injuries. And I think what kept me going, though, was the thought that that wasn't how the story was going to end. I was going to choose how this was going to end. And it was going to end in a buzzer, and it was going to end in a trip to Vegas. Like, I already had those goals. And I'm just so crazy determined when it comes to stuff like that, that I was going to see it through. So despite 5 years of failure, setbacks, and injuries, I got my first buzzer, and that was exciting for the moms. That was exciting for me, but also huge for the moms, and seeing the effect that had on other moms. And now I got a new big goal, and everyone's going to get to watch me compete in Vegas. And what a stage and what a season it's been.
You've made it to Vegas after 7
Woo!
seasons. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I should have said that a lot sooner. You know, though, now that's just, I love that you just kept getting called. You kept hearing the voice. You've got to do that. Try that. You got to try it. And you couldn't ignore the voice in your head.
I tried hard. I tried really hard.
Now that years later, looking back, have you ever discovered why you were called to this? Is there a reason now, do you think, that you've reflected on and said, well, now I know why I couldn't ignore that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a wonderful question. I never in a million years. So growing up, I remember in high school, one of my teachers, Mr. Villegas, he said, Sandy, you should run for class president. And I said, well, I'll consider it. What do you have to do to run for class president? I asked him. And he said, well, you have to give a short little speech in front of the school. And I immediately in my head was like, hell no, I am not getting up in front of a crowd, and I am not going to be talking. So that was where I was as far as having that courage and confidence to speak in front of a stage. And when I'm in college at GU, we'd gotten done with one of our basketball workouts, and I'm leaving the gym, I'm walking up the stairs, and I heard those quiet little voices that just seem like someone is there. And it just said, Sandy, share your story. And I immediately was like, no way. My story is sad. It's painful. People will run. People will judge me. I mean, all of these thoughts came flooding in. So I spent over 20 years Every once in a while, I hear that voice, Sandy, share your story. And I would shut that voice up. Well, the crazy thing about Ninja Warrior is as I started that journey, I was about 2 years into that journey. And when you do hard, challenging things, it just changes you as a human being. And I had this courage and this confidence that I just never had before. So 2 years into my journey, I'm down in our weight room downstairs working out. And I hear the voice again, Sandy, share your story. And this was the first time in over 20 years that I paused just for a second to consider it. And that's when I heard the second part, and it just said, but it has a happy ending. And man, I sat in that weight room crying. And I'm actually saying out loud, like, yeah, it does have a happy ending. It does. And it really hit me that day that my next calling, I was a teacher and coach for 23 years. And I think that was my calling with where I was at. But now that I've had the courage and the confidence to share my story, I have no doubt that that's what I'm meant to do now. And Ninja Warrior somehow magically gave me the courage to do that. I didn't even know that I had a gift of speaking.
Mhm.
And now I'm really trying to hone that gift in, share stories that I think absolutely change lives. Absolutely. What I've learned from my journey will change lives. And so now it's like, that's my passion and my purpose. So looking at this, I didn't know it when I started American Ninja Warrior Journey, that was the big picture. And I think that's what's so big in life is that we don't see the whole big picture. But had I not said yes to American Ninja Warrior 8 years ago, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And, it is a whole, like the 2.0 version of Sandy Zimmerman that can now take these stories, take this pain these hard things and challenging things that I've been through, and now I get to use them to change lives. It's almost like that's my way of, showing it who's boss. I'm going to take this pain. I'm going to take these things I've been through. And now everything I've learned from them, I'm going to share with anybody and everybody who will listen. So if they're facing something similar, they can come out the other end and just really be the absolute best version of themselves. So it's crazy how doing some obstacles on a show can change the trajectory of your life.
It gave you that confidence in that audience. And it's interesting, this is just a comment. I wish I could ask the question. We got to take a break. But it's interesting how you started out talking about the voices, the fears that we all have, and you had so many before you put yourself in the car, drove yourself 7 hours to the tryouts, and then barely got out of the car, talked yourself out of the car, and Big Sandy, the voice in your head, took over and won. Thank God. And here you are. Look at and that moment that you just described in the weight room, breaking down and going, there's a good ending to this story. It sounds like you have a great voice that, and I think that's a lesson for all of us to listen more to our voices, and hopefully a good outcome will take over the fears, and overcome the fears. But it sounds like you've got a really good voice that you can trust and a good gut. Let's take a real quick break. We're going to come right back though, so don't go anywhere. I want to hear your story if you could share that with us. I'm talking with Sandy Zimmerman. She is American Ninja Warrior. You can follow her on Instagram, as I just did a little bit ago, at Sandy_Zimmerman_ninja. And I'm going to spell Zimmerman. It's got 2 M's, Zimmerman. Sandy_Zimmerman_ninja. You can also find out more about Sandy and her public speaking, and I imagine they could book you for their event at sandyzimmermanninja.com. Again, we're talking with Sandy Zimmerman, American Ninja Warrior, Mondays, 8/7 Central. Tonight, you're going to want to check out Sandy on American Ninja Warrior and follow along as the journey continues. It's on NBC.com, American Ninja Warrior.